So good. Let's hope that the second session goes off better than the first one did. So these are just a few slides I wanted to share with you, which are from competition we had done for the police memorial. It's a very interesting competition, and it was a very nice proposal, and we were placed third in this. Um, so what it's trying to again do is the reason I'm sharing all this is that I'm trying to say that these are not different or disjointed pieces of uh, what I do. They are all connected. So what I do today online in my workshops, or what I share on the blog, or what's in my Instagram profile, they're all linked. So it's not as if I've reinvented myself after a few years and doing something else. Everything that I've done from the very beginning has worked towards giving me what I am today and what I do today. So it includes the landscape architecture. It includes the architecture I've done, because architecture is a wonderful field. It allows you to learn so much about the art and the music, and so it's not just engineering, and it's not just the science part. It also looks at the uh, intangible things. It looks at culture. So all of that has prepared me for what I do today. But the most underlining thing that I would like to share with you is that do something that you are really passionate about. So do something that you love. So architecture was something that I was very passionate about. I didn't follow it just because I thought it would that I would make a lot of money, which I'm sure is something that guides a lot of you. So if money is important to you, and it's something that you think is that you want to work towards, then that's good. It's good to know what you want. So for me, it was perhaps other things, and money was just slightly secondary to my intention. I wanted to enjoy what I was doing. I wanted to have a work which didn't feel like work. So till date, when I practice, whether it's architecture or primarily I'm doing landscape architecture these days, it doesn't feel like work. So I feel the same enthusiasm or excitement about what I do, and I think that's what's true to everything that I've done in my life. It was never too planned. So I started my blog totally on random. That was the time when blogs were being mentioned in the newspapers, and I got curious about knowing what exactly a blog is. If you can go to the next slide, please. So I looked it up, and I said, okay, really? So that's what it is. And then I said, okay, maybe I can find a different way of cooking something. So I looked that up, and that's what I was telling you earlier, that opened a whole new world for me. That, oh wow, there is this thing called the blogosphere, and you can share, you can write. And I'd always secretly wanted to be a writer. Who doesn't want to be a writer, right? So I had that, and here I wouldn't have to worry about an editor. I wouldn't have to worry about um, people telling me how much I could write, what I could write about, that it was too lengthy, and people didn't have that kind of an attention span. So it was my own world, but I really enjoyed writing. So I took that precision, or that interest, or the fact that I wanted it to be good. So it had to be good to me. I would publish a blog only after I had written it for a long time, edited it and re-edited it and reread it. So typically it would take me about 8 to 10 hours to write a blog post. So that's the kind of time I was putting into my blog. Can we go to the next slide, please? So we were doing, and so again, these are examples of some of the work I've done. And it's a school landscape. And what you see to the right is the Chakraview pattern. So I thought it would be fun for little kids to be running through that and learning about other things. So this is also where I told the teachers that this is where you should send the children if you think they've done something wrong. They can walk this Chakraview, and as they're walking, they'll feel relaxed, they'll get distracted, and this can be interesting. So again, doing other things, not simply it's not simply a pattern on the surface. Next slide, please. So we can just So I was telling you that it was about 2006 when I started my blog, and you may be curious about the name. So again, it's the fact that you've read something and you have other interests. So Alice in Wonderland, I'm sure most of you, I hope most of you have read that book, and it's a book that I really love. So it can be read again at many levels. So it can be a simple tale of a little girl who's bored and somebody is telling her a story. Or if you go into the details of it, it has all kinds of complex riddles and information and cryptic messages throughout the book. So if you get a chance, if you haven't read it, then do read it, and you can find the annotated Alice, which tells you about all those hidden things that are there hidden in there's limericks, there's riddles. So I knew that I wanted to call my blog a Matchy Party, and luckily I was able to find WordPress, which still had that name available. So I started my blog and I started sharing everything that I do. Again, I would say that it's very truthful. So, it's easier if you're truthful, then you don't have to put in too much effort, because otherwise you have to, if you're pretending to be somebody else, then it's a lot of work. If you don't do that, if you just do it because that's what you want to do, that's what you want to share. So, I've cooked this today and I'm sharing it. So I have never cooked for my blog, and I've never cooked for Instagram. I've cooked for myself and my family, and I just share it. And whatever, too many or too few followers that I have, they come for that. So I don't have to pretend. It doesn't have to be a lot of work for me. So I was doing this for some time, and as I was telling you, I love to cook. I was sharing my food, and I mentioned that I was also a visiting professor. I was a visiting professor at the School of Planning and Architecture. And, I used to carry my lunch with me, and my colleagues would taste it, and they would be like, wow, today you've brought something from South India. Oh, wow, today it's Kerala, today it's Maharashtra. And they would say that, why don't you teach us how to make these dishes? No, of course, I didn't take them seriously. They said it a few times, and I said, you know what, it would be kind of fun to teach or rather, to cook in a group, because there would be 4 or 5 people, and I would do the food that I love to do. And, in that, if some people learn how to cook a few new dishes, that'd be fun. If we can go to the next slide, please. So with that, I just launched, like everything else I do without too much planning. I started, announced my workshops on Instagram, and I think at that time I didn't have a lot of followers. And so naturally, there were only so many people who were reading it, and somebody announces the workshop, and this was 4 years ago. So it wasn't this COVID time when everyone's doing workshops and there are webinars, and here I am on another webinar with you. So that was a different time, but I started. And before that, I did have an opportunity. I was telling you that, I was writing, and I was very particular about what I was sharing on the blog. So if you are particular about your punctuation, if you're particular about editing, then your posts, whether they are long or short, they read well, and you find your audience. And so again, you write what you want to write, and you will find your audience. So I have had the good fortune to be published, and I've also lately, I think more during the COVID times, that I've been written about. So I think some of the things that I was doing was earlier, what was in the earlier slide, where it said, slow life and gardening and cooking, and all of this suddenly came into its own during the last few months, when people were sitting at home and thinking about what they ought to do, and, finding more meaning in their lives, and whether they were doing the right things. So I think people suddenly realized that, they need to pay attention to some of the regular, everyday, mundane things. And suddenly, I also did a couple of few Instagram lives on how to do a chutney garden. And I think that caught the fancy of a few people. And I got interviewed a couple of times because of that. Then, as part of that slow lifing that I do and experimenting with the food that I grow and what I do in the house, one of the things that I restarted about 6 years ago, 5 years ago, was the sourdough journey. So this was not the first time I was doing it. I made my first starter about 10 years ago. So I've had all that experience of, failure and doing things over, which we did a little bit of today also. We are like redoing it in the second session. So I've done that. I'd made all the mistakes, and then about 4 years ago, when I restarted my sourdough journey, I again, went through a lot of loaves before I had a perfect loaf. And just as luck would have it, sourdough was a hot topic, and everybody wanted to learn how to make a sourdough loaf. And I was already doing workshops, so I already had that. And even though it doesn't look like I'm very tech savvy, once somebody sets up the systems for me, I can do a good job of using the system. So I've done, I think, about 20, 30 online workshops. And everything, fell into place. People wanted to do sourdough, and I was willing to and happy to share my experience with them. So that's how the workshops went online. If we can go to the next slide, please. So this is my kitchen garden when I started it first, which is about 4 years ago. So this is the first year of it. And like I've been telling you that, I have many interests, and uh, often what happens is that we think we want to do something, and then, a little later you may realize that, nah, I don't think I'm that much into it. So for the first year, I gave myself time. I didn't invest too much into it. I bought some bags online, which didn't work out for me. So then I went back to using bags around the house, and that's what you see in this slide. You see an India Gate basmati rice, and there's some flour sacks also. So that's the first year of my kitchen gardening, and I thought, I had reasonable success. I had mustard, I had kale, I had all kinds of basils and herbs, and they did rather well. And I had eggplant also, I think. And I thought, maybe I'm ready to take the next step. Next slide, please. Can I go to the next slide? So that will tell you the progress. So the following year, then I invested more money into it. We got some wooden planters made, and I started to harvest all kinds of produce. But again, it was something that you learn. There's so much to learn with the things that you do around nature, that I found that there was a big monkey menace in Delhi. So then I said, what do I do? I can't cage myself in to protect. So I figured that there were certain things the monkeys weren't attacking, and then that's what I started to grow, which is all these greens that you see. So I grow a lot of greens. For details on this, it's better if you follow me on Instagram. I shared a lot of stories from my garden. If we can go to the next slide, please. Just today, I made a salad which had 6 kinds of greens in it. And it was a delicious salad. And that's me in my garden. And that's the bunch of tomatoes that I harvested earlier this year. And I made many things with it. So marinara sauce and so much else. If we can go to the next slide, please. So we can go through the slides a little bit quickly. So this is what I then do with what I harvest. The lines are for my garden. Then on the left, you see mango vinegar, which is with the mangoes that I get from my garden. And in the middle picture is a grapevine. So I also get some grapes. Can you go to the next slide? And then all of this feeds my experiments in the kitchen, which is pickling, because when you have a lot of produce, you can't use it all, you can't eat it all in one go. So invariably, if you have a garden, you'll have everything ripening or ready at the same time, and there's only so much you can use. Then you look at food preservation. So that is another thing that I think a lot of you probably would not have heard of. maybe when we go to the chats, and I would like you to answer this question for me. How many of you know one way of preserving food for eating later? So here what you see are some lacto-fermented chilies, and I've got some mooli that will probably go into a pickle. You saw a jar of vinegar before this. Next slide, please. That's my planters. That's what I have now got in my kitchen garden. And this is the time when we were doing in-person workshops. So typically I would have 6 to 8 people in a workshop, and we make bread, we do other things. I love Indian regional food, and that's what I share. So again, it comes back to what I love. All the workshops I do, I don't care what's trending. I just share what I love to do. So I love to bake sourdough bread. Yeah, let me have a workshop on that, and it'll be fun. I made some pasta, I enjoyed it, and I thought, hey, I think people should know how to make their own pasta. So next, I'm announcing a pasta workshop. Next slide, please. So that keeps it fun for me as well as all the participants that come. And these are again some pictures from the workshops. Next slide. And then COVID stuck, and I had announced the workshop. People had paid for it, but we weren't able to conduct it. So we waited for a little bit, and then I thought, this was such a great time for people to be making sourdough bread. So I called those who had, signed up for the workshop, and I said, would you like your money back? Or they said, no, we'll wait. So we waited for some time, and then I said, perfect time for people to be making sourdough. So let me see if this can be done online, because before that I hadn't done any virtual workshops, and I didn't think that was a good idea. But then we made a sourdough starter, and that went very well. We had sourdough starter, and it only made sense that they should take the next step, which was to make bread. So then I said, okay, let us test a sourdough workshop, and I tested it on Zoom. So that was my testing. I had 3 participants, and we made a bread, and the breads came out well, and the rest, as they say, is history. So I've been doing a lot of online workshops. Look, I'm smiling, so I usually do a good job of it. Next slide, please. So usually, I am in charge of everything. So I think the audio and all gets resolved before the meeting starts. So I was telling you about what I grow, and then because I grow so much, then I pickle it. The top right slide shows you different ways of pickling. In fact, most of them they are all mango. So on the left is a chutney made with semi-ripe. So these are all mangoes from my father's tree. So they are stuff, they are produce that we grew ourselves. Second jar has green mangoes. The third jar has a mango pickle, created the Maharashtrian style. So probably all of you or most of you must be making it at home, or some of you might have tasted Bedekar's Ambal on Page like that. And then the other tall jar has a mango lime jam. And they're all made with the produce at home. And below that you see a orange marmalade. I have lots of oranges at home. Some friends send me. I have limes. And what to do? And my mother gave me some sweet lime from her tree the other day. And I said, hey, let's make marmalade. Next slide, please. And then, once you make all this, and then you want to get better at what you do. And if I'm making only 1 loaf of bread a week, there's only so much progress I can make. And if in my workshops I want to share more in-depth knowledge, then I need to get better at what I do. And so I want to make more bread. And if you make more bread, you can't eat so much bread. So then I started to, I have begun very recently, just a couple of weeks back, this month, a small sourdough bread subscription. So people, I bake, and whatever little I make, I sell. So again, it's not really, if you look at it, by selling a dozen loaves, I'm not going to make a lot of money. But it gives me a way to connect with people, and it gives people an opportunity to eat and taste really good food. So that's why I'm doing it. I don't know where it will go, because again, like everything else I've done before, it was not that I had in mind, what I was I going to, how much money I was going to make. So this is just something I've started. Who knows where it will take me? Next slide, please. So these are the different breads that I've been trying. In fact, let me show you. I just tried to make better baguette today. So I'm still practicing. This is another kind of sourdough bread. It's called ciabatta. Next slide, please. The last slide is just a final picture of a sourdough loaf and how it looks from the inside. So you can see this is something I really, truly love to do. I look forward to making these breads every week. I make it a couple of times a week. And when I travel away from home, it's something that I really miss. That I'm longing to get back and get my hands into the dough. So I hope this is what you were looking for and wanting to know what I do. So you can get more into what because I know this is more than what can fit into a 30-40 minute presentation. So you can see more of it on my blog and on my Instagram. But with that, I will open it to questions. I'm
Thank you
sorry
very
for all
much.
the mess up earlier
Yes,
for the
ma'am,
audio.
yes. Understandable. And we're sorry to all of the people to whom inconvenience has been caused. Thank you very much, ma'am, for the engaging talk. There were glitches in between. So we're also recording this session. So we'll ensure that people can derive value from it even after this session ends. We'll be sharing it with them on the group.
Okay.
And if anyone has any questions, please write them down in the chat box. We also have collated questions, and I would ask ma'am those questions. Meanwhile, the others can type out their questions. Now, ma'am, I would focus more on your profession as a sustainable landscape architect and the way you ensure that you're living a sustainable life, because that's something which is really important in this age of climate change and global warming. So the questions which we have got is surrounding that aspect. The first question we have
Sure.
is,
Yeah, please go ahead.
so last year we had a CEO, the CEO of Bamboo India. He had shared his views on how he uses bamboo to create sustainable products, toothbrushes, and he used he replaced plastic products with bamboo. And last year, we
Right.
students observed that the price of these bamboo products, sustainable products, is quite high. Now, given the fact that we Indians, a major portion of our country is, it would come in the middle class or upper middle class group. What's the most viable way forward? Because some people really want to do it, but then you see there are these constraints. So what can we exactly do at our level? And do you think the government should
Okay.
subsidize such
So,
products?
okay. Okay. These are good questions, and I'm glad that the young people are asking them. It's very interesting that we should think that it is expensive. So expensive is because you are obviously not including the cost to the environment in what else we do. So there is a tremendous cost. Let's take the example. I don't think too many of you are from Delhi, but I'll still take that example that we have really bad air quality in Delhi right now. Why is that? That is because Punjab wants to grow basmati rice. Why does Punjab want to grow basmati rice? about 30 years ago, Punjab didn't grow basmati rice because it was an arid area. It was not supposed to grow rice at all, basmati or otherwise. But we made technology which made it possible to harness groundwater. So once you harness groundwater, now you have water everywhere for some time. Obviously, it's not going to last forever. So there is an opportunity for somebody who didn't grow something to grow something unsustainably. And the other thing is that why are they still growing it? We are not eating that basmati because middle class still thinks that basmati is expensive. So we don't still buy it. What happens to that? It gets exported. So for a country like India, which number one does not have any water, number two, it's growing rice in places where it should not be growing rice. And then we are exporting all that. So not only are we exporting food, we are exporting water. We are a water constrained country. We should not be doing that. We should not be exporting water. So that's an unsustainable practice. And what has that resulted in? It's also resulted in a good basmati from Dehradun from getting wiped out. Why did it get wiped out? Because cheaper basmati from Punjab is available. So we don't buy the more expensive basmati from Dehradun because that's the cost of real food. Today you will say that, organically grown food is more expensive. But the point is that middle class is the one which can choose. The poor are not the reason for the environmental problems because they don't consume that much. So the poor person, even if he is using a plastic toothbrush, isn't going to be using as many of them or not using that much soap or using that much fuel, doesn't have a car. So we should leave those out. That leaves the middle class, which actually has the money. So we can afford to buy bamboo toothbrushes. Or maybe we shouldn't buy our Levi's jeans and instead buy the toothbrush. So it's about prioritizing what you need. Second, to consume less. We don't need 5 pair of jeans. We can do with 2. We don't need, everybody in the house doesn't need a car. We don't need big houses. So these are all questions that the young people must think about. Don't go by what's trending. Think about what we should be doing. And I think if there's a silver lining to the COVID thing, it's about that people have suddenly paused and they've had to do without things for the last 5-6 months, which has made us rethink that, maybe we didn't need all those things we thought we needed in the first place. So we can afford to buy bamboo toothbrushes.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. Got it. Right, but that's a decision which we have to make. We can prioritize a bamboo toothbrush over Levi's jeans.
Yes.
That you're right. Very convincing. I just want to inform everyone that the session is going to end again in about 5 minutes. Please join back using the same link. We also have to share the feedback link. This limit of 40 minutes is this is a constraint upon us because we're using the free version. Tahir, how much
Rohan,
time?
I think, Rohan, just a minute. Anita, if you don't mind, we can mail you the remaining questions, and we can close. Otherwise, joining back sometimes there's a lag, What do you prefer? What do you prefer?
I prefer to answer that. Writing will take too long. So
okay.
This is more interactive, and I would like to see some faces if possible. Please. Let's try to join back.
Okay, ma'am.
So remember to unmute me.
Yes, ma'am. You need to connect to the audio over there once you get connected to the meeting.
Okay,
The next question.
I'll do exactly what I did this time.
Yes, ma'am. Yes.
Yes.
Ashiti has asked that during the lockdown, if someone realizes that he or she is enjoying cooking, now we're in bachelors, so what should that person do?
That's a great thing. So you enjoy cooking, and I think the others who don't think they enjoy cooking, even they should learn how to cook, because it's not about just creating uh, lovely things to eat. It's a life skill. You cannot not. How can you not know how to cook? It's such a basic thing. What are the three needs for humans? Food, shelter, and water, right? So food, you've relegated food to somebody else. Somebody else is growing it for you. Somebody else is cooking it for you. You're just passively consuming it. That's not a good thing for the future generation. I implore all of you to learn to cook. You should know it's a life skill. It's a lifesaver. Those of you who some of you might have been isolated. I'm sure you must have realized that, oh my God, I can't cook. The maid's not coming. What do I do? And the same thing for the food. Many people have started gardening during this time because they realize they can't be relying on external systems all the time. So this is something you should do. But of course, if you enjoy it, keep doing it. Who knows where it will take you? It's a lovely way to learn about other cultures. It's a lovely way to know about your own family. You could be sitting with your whoever cooks in your family, maybe your father, your mother, your grandfather, your grandmother, and talk to them and learn more about your own roots, your own beginnings, your own culture and history.
Right, ma'am. Thanks, ma'am. Thanks. The next question is, could you please elaborate on how appropriate architecture or designs, you as an architect, how do you contribute to sustainability? How does the profession contribute to sustainability?
So I think everyone needs a house. So architects are primarily about designing buildings. So there are many other professions that work together to create cities. Architects make buildings, but there are urban planners, there are other specialists, there are landscape architects who create better cities, more livable cities. But the energy consumption that we do in a house is a significant amount of contributor to, whether you're talking about sustainability or whether you're talking about resource conservation. So a well-designed house will use less water, less energy, and it will stay cooler. If in the summer, it will be warmer in the winter. So all of these things will give you something that is sits lightly on the earth. And that's about the energy comes. The second thing is about the siting itself. Where should you build? Some areas are things that we should not be building in. Take the example of wetlands. We encroach on public land. We encroach on lands that are otherwise fulfilling many other systemic requirements for us. So they are like infrastructure. They are like green infrastructure. So when you encroach on something, be careful about it. For example, we've seen what's happened in Mumbai. It's happened in Srinagar. All the flooding that is happening today. It's happening because we are building in zones that we should have stayed out of. We are paving everything around it. So if at a house level, I would say that work with your architect so that you don't pave everything. Leave something soft. Leave some areas which are porous, so for the water to soak in. Look at the bylaws in a more constructive way. Don't look at it as a way to get around something. Okay, what is the way to get around this bylaw? So try to understand the intent of why certain bylaws were created and try to follow them. So if you're okay with having a slightly smaller house or one room less, it's possible that what you get will be better ventilated, better lit. And all these things are important, not just from the point of view of, bylaws or, energy conservation. They are something that we need. If we are exposed to the daily cycle of the sun, it's because humans have evolved to need these symbols and these indications, for our own better mental health. We need to be connected to the cycles of nature. So if your house is well lit and it's well ventilated, it will keep you healthy. not just physically, but mentally also. There's so many ways that architects who are aware of all these things um, that they are in charge of, they will be able to bring that into their design. Whether it is energy conservation, water is very important. So a good architect will make sure that you have systems in which you can recycle. And it's now anyways becoming part of the bylaws where larger scale communities have to take care of their waste that they generate. So whether it is wet waste or solid waste,